Most people think they know exactly what to do the moment they see mold on berries. It feels like a simple decision that doesn't require much thought. You either remove the bad one and keep the rest, or you throw everything away just to be safe. It happens so quickly that most people never stop to question whether they're actually making the right call. But this is where things start to get uncomfortable, because that instinctive decision you make in a few seconds is often based on a rule that doesn't actually apply to berries. And depending on which direction you choose, you're either wasting perfectly good food without realizing it, or taking a risk you didn't intend to take. The reason this situation is so confusing is because mold doesn't behave the same way on every type of food. With harder foods, what you see is usually what you get. You can cut away the affected part and still safely use the rest. That rule feels logical, and people carry it over to everything else. But berries don't follow that rule, and that's exactly where most people get it wrong. Berries are soft, fragile, and packed with moisture. That combination creates the perfect environment for mold to grow, but more importantly, it allows mold to spread in ways that aren't always visible. What you see on the surface is only part of what's happening. In many cases, mold begins spreading internally before it becomes obvious on the outside. So now the decision becomes more complicated than it first appeared. If you can't fully trust what you see, how do you decide what's still safe? This is where people tend to fall into one of two extremes. Some assume everything is contaminated and throw the entire container away immediately. Others assume the opposite and treat it as a small, isolated issue that can be solved by removing one berry. But neither of those approaches is consistently correct. The real answer depends on details most people don't take the time to check. The first thing that matters is how widespread the mold actually is. If you open the container and notice multiple berries with mold, or mold appearing in different areas, that's a strong indication that the contamination has already spread. In that situation, the safest choice is to discard everything, because the environment inside the container has already allowed mold to move beyond what you can see. But when it's limited to just one berry, the situation changes completely. And this is where a more precise approach becomes important. Removing the moldy berry is the obvious first step, but it's not enough on its own. The berries that were directly touching it carry the highest risk, even if they still look perfectly normal. Mold spreads through contact and moisture, not just through visible growth, which means those nearby berries may already be affected in ways you can't see. By removing those as well, you significantly reduce the risk. This is the step most people skip, and it's also the reason why so many people either overreact or underestimate the situation. Once those berries are removed, what remains is the part that requires actual judgment. Are the remaining berries firm, or are they starting to soften? Do they look dry and fresh, or is there any sign of leaking, stickiness, or discoloration? These small details are not random. They tell you whether the environment inside the container is still stable or already starting to break down. If everything still looks fresh and intact, the remaining berries are generally safe after washing. But even here, there is a detail that changes how you should think about the process. Washing is not a solution. It doesn't eliminate mold that has already spread inside the fruit. It only removes surface residue. That means washing should be seen as a precaution, not a fix. And understanding that difference helps you avoid a false sense of security. At this point, the situation is no longer about reacting quickly. It's about understanding what you're actually looking at. And once you understand that, another question naturally comes up. What happens if you accidentally eat a moldy berry without realizing it? This is where most people assume the worst, but the reality is usually less dramatic. In most cases, consuming a small amount of mold does not lead to serious problems. The body can typically handle it without major consequences, although some people might experience mild discomfort. However, that doesn't mean it should be ignored. Some individuals are more sensitive, and reactions can vary. So while the risk is generally low, it's still something worth avoiding when possible. The goal is not to panic, but to reduce unnecessary exposure by making better decisions earlier in the process. And that leads to a much more important shift in thinking. Instead of focusing only on what to do after mold appears, it makes more sense to ask why it happened so quickly in the first place. Because if you've ever bought berries that looked perfect and then noticed mold within a day or two, it probably felt random, but it's not. Berries are naturally delicate. Their thin skins, high water content, and natural sugars create ideal conditions for mold growth. Even a small amount of trapped moisture can speed up the process significantly. And once mold begins to develop, it can release spores that spread throughout the container before you even notice visible signs. That's why prevention is more effective than reaction. Because once mold appears, you're already deciding between risk and waste. But if you slow the process down before it starts, the decision becomes much easier. Simple changes make a noticeable difference. Keeping berries dry is one of the most effective ways to extend their freshness. Moisture is the main trigger for mold growth, which means reducing it slows everything down. This is also why washing berries immediately after buying them can actually make them spoil faster instead of keeping them fresh. Waiting until right before eating to wash them helps avoid that problem. There is also the factor of time, which is often underestimated. Berries are not designed to last long. Even under good conditions, they are best consumed within a few days. The longer they sit, the more likely it is that mold will develop, regardless of how carefully you store them. And this is where everything connects. The issue isn't just how you store them, it's how long you keep them. Once you start seeing the pattern, the entire situation becomes clearer. Moldy berries are not a simple yes or no decision. They require a quick evaluation based on a few key factors. How many are affected, which ones were touching, how fresh the rest look, and how long they've been stored, all play a role in determining what's safe. When you understand these factors, the decision becomes much easier. You're no longer guessing or reacting based on habit. You're making a decision based on what actually matters. And that shift is what allows you to avoid wasting food while still protecting yourself. Because in reality, most people are not careless. They just don't have enough information in the moment to make the right call. And once you do have that information, the situation stops being confusing. So the next time you open a container and see that one moldy berry, you won't hesitate. You'll know exactly what to check, what to remove, and when it's time to throw everything away. Not based on guesswork, but based on how it actually works. And if you want more content that breaks down everyday decisions like this in a clear and practical way without overcomplicating them, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the difference between wasting food and making a smarter choice often comes down to understanding the details most people overlook.